leads on to the next question from Newland Girls School, actually. Is it like what you expected it to be? Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve?
Well, nothing is ever like what you expect it to be in making a film. It's always different, and this one more so, because actually I didn't really know what to expect. Because if we had, only 5 hours of material sent into us, it would have been one thing. It would have been pretty awful, probably. I didn't really have any strong opinions about what I wanted. I just thought I want good stuff, but what that was going to be, I didn't know. So, no, it's I don't know. That's a really hard one to answer. I'm not sure I can answer that. I'm pleased with the film. I think it's a good film. There aren't many good films.
No comment. Has it changed the way you see things? This film. That's another one from Newland Girls School.
Yeah, no, I think it has changed the way I see the world.
In what way would you say?
I think it's made me feel more connected to the world, and it has that having that idea made real for you that people around the world are really the same and want the same things, love the same things, fear the same things. All of that's a really powerful idea, which is kind of, when you hear it in the abstract, it's sort of hard to grasp, or you sort of know it's probably true, but when you actually see it, as I did, see hundreds and hundreds of hours of stuff, and you really get explained to you how similar we all are. And also I think it gave me a lot of respect for people who were willing to film really private things in their lives and share it with the rest of the world. I thought I'm not sure if I would have done that. And that made me really respect the people who did this.
Did anyone kind of have second thoughts after they sent it in or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, a couple of people did. I mean, there was a woman who had filmed herself crying. She was really upset, and we put it in actually in the montage at the end, and she decided she didn't want it in, and then we took it out, and then she changed her mind. And then, but mostly people had to, when they sent their material in, they had to tick a box saying, I allow this to be used. But then we also tried to send out what are called release forms out to people with, they have to sign and say, I'm happy for this to be used, I consent. And so people had opportunities to say, I don't want to be part of it. But so far we've had nobody sort of saying, you misrepresented me, or this, I didn't want to be in this. That hasn't happened. In fact, the other day I had a really lovely thing. It was also a very sad thing happened, which was one of the contributors to the film died about 3 or 4 days ago. And his name was Randy Ray Sides. He's a very eccentric character in the film.
Which one is that?
He shoots, he's in America, and he's an ex-drug addict, and he shoots himself and the man he lives with, who's an avid collector, who's gone bankrupt. He's collected all these pianos and things.
Yes, yeah.
And so he eccentric character. But apparently he passed away 3 or 4 days ago, and his brother emailed me to say, just wanted you to know that Randy passed away, but wanted to let you know that the thing that he was most proud of in his whole life was having had his film in Life in a Day, and that it meant so much to him. That doesn't happen to you very often when you're making a film that somebody means that much to somebody.
You created hundreds of movie stars with your...
Yes, in a way, but it's just that it's really, that makes it into a really lovely, sweet experience.
Olivia from Mount Grace High School would like to know which video was your favourite.
They're like all my little children. They're all my little children. I can't have a favourite. I don't know, it's one of those things when we were making it, it would change every day. Yeah. And I don't know, there's one that really special to me in Uganda, because I spent a lot of time in Uganda when I was making this film, The Last King of Scotland. There's one from there where it's just this beautiful girl talking with her boyfriend about the customs that they have in Uganda and about how women have to kneel down in front of men, and it's very sweet. And it's just, probably because of what it means to me, I love it. I think probably the best clip as a piece of filmmaking is the clip that was sent in by the Japanese father and his son, and which is near the beginning of the film, and clearly the mother in the family has passed away recently, and we learn that slowly through the course of this clip, and it's very, very touching. And they say good morning to the mother. There's a little shrine set up in the corner of the room, and they ring a bell and light an incense. It's very nice. That's
one of my favourites too, I think. Question about your general career from Jessica, who's 13. I like it when they put their ages, that's good. And from Weatherhead High School in Merseyside. She'd like to know, what age were you when you decided to make films, and how did you feel about films when you were at school?
Well, I always adored films. I loved watching films. And some of my best and strongest memories of growing up grew up near Glasgow, and we used to go in sometimes for a special treat into Glasgow to go to the movies, like on our birthdays or something. And I remember queuing for like 2 hours to go and see Superman, the original Superman, and queuing for hours to go and see the original Star Wars, and those sort of things. Those memories stick with you. But I never thought I'd be a filmmaker.
You never crossed your mind?
No, it never crossed my mind. I thought I was going to be a journalist. I wanted to be a journalist. And then I couldn't get a job in journalism. I started making documentaries, and because I'm very nosy. And then I ended up actually making my first feature film only 6 or 7 years ago, The Last King of Scotland. Before that, I just made documentaries. And then I found, I actually really like this feature film business. I'm going to do a bit more of that.
But clearly you still like making documentaries.
Yeah, I think it's the best thing is to be able to do both, you know. There aren't that many directors who do both. I don't know why. Probably because documentaries don't pay you anything. But they're so interesting, documentaries, because you get to be nosy. You get to go out and find out about the world and find out about why people do what they do and why they behave, and uncover bad behaviour and conspiracies and that sort of thing. That's sort of exciting.
Peter at the Rosen Community School would like to know who the directors that influenced you. I don't know if there's any documentary directors actually that you remember. There's a documentary director called Humphrey Jennings, who's a British filmmaker who worked mostly during the war, and the Second World War. He did sponsored stuff as well, didn't he?
He did sponsor stuff, and he also was one of the founders of that thing I told about earlier called mass observation, where they got people to write diaries. But he also made films. And there's a beautiful film which I recommend any of you to see, because it's very short, and I think you'd find it incredibly beautiful. It's called Listen to Britain, and it's the sights and the sounds of Britain during the war, and it's sort of bits of music, bits of dialogue, and it just moves around. There's not really any story. It's a little bit like Life in the Day, and it paints this picture of what Britain is like during the war. It was one of the big influences on making Life in the Day. There's that filmmaker, and there's also somebody called Errol Morris, who's a documentary maker who made another brilliant film I really recommend you get. It should be a FILMCLUB staple. It's called The Thin Blue Line. And it's about how this filmmaker starts investigating a murder and trying to figure out whether the man who's actually in prison accused of the murder did it. And he realizes at the end, he proves at the end of the movie that he didn't do it and that somebody else did. And he manages to really prove that, and the guy who should be in prison is imprisoned because of the evidence that came up in the film. And it's all done like a detective story. Yeah. It's like a mystery. And it's really, really good. That was a big influence on me.
Right. This is probably my favourite question because it's a little bit cheeky. It's from the Earls High School in Halesowen. They'd like to know, do you think actors get too much of an arrogant attitude if they make too much money?
Absolutely, yes. Is it about making money, or is it about... They definitely get too much of an arrogant attitude. I would agree with you on that. But is it about making money, or is it about just being famous? I don't know. The two things as well as each other. I've worked with mostly really, really lovely actors, and most of the best actors actually aren't that arrogant, you know. But some of them are, and I won't name names of the ones who I've worked with who are. But there was an Australian. You can figure it out.
We're going to be on the website now looking out. Any more questions from Twitter? We'll have some guesses probably on who that actually is.
Not quite yet. But we have had, which is really lovely, we've had a picture of the contents of pupils' pockets from Washington. So there's...
Describe them to us.
Yep, so we've got a few phones, of course, got a few keys, got a lovely blue cat key ring, tissues, some coppers. So that was really nice for those to come in. And it'd just be nice, obviously there's been lots coming in that we won't get around to asking, unfortunately, so we'll just say hello to Molson School and Rosen School and Rushmead and Phoenix. Thank you for getting involved as well.
That whole question about what have you got in your pockets, that comes from... I wanted to say something about inequality, because one of the things in the world is that not everyone has the same amount of stuff, and So I thought that was an interesting way to get at that. You know, so you have people in Haiti who are emptying their pockets out, and what they got nothing. Yeah. And then you have somebody in America who empties their pockets out, and they've got a Lamborghini key. Yeah. So that says all you need to know about inequality in the world.
Good question. Jamie from the Rosen Community Film Club would like to know, what's your all-time favourite film, and what classic film do you think is grossly overrated? Those are his words as well.
Wow, what classic film is grossly overrated? Well, recently I watched a lot of the movies, for some reason, I don't know, of Steven Spielberg, and I don't know if it's considered a classic, but I watched E.T. I thought it was rubbish.
Oh, I love E.T.
I thought E.T. did not stand up at all. But on the other hand, Empire of the Sun, which nobody went to see when it came out. It's Christian Bale's first performance later on, before he'd even thought about Batman and all of that stuff. He's a boy, he's only about 11 in it or something, and he's fantastic in it. And it's all set in China during the Second World War, and it's a really, really good, exciting movie. What is my all-time favourite film? You know what, you're going to think this is really uncool, but... I know. It's kind of scary admission. Oh, no, how did you know? No, it's not. It's a film called Singing in the Rain.
That's really cool.
Singing in the Rain, which is a musical, and it's like one of those films where it should be on the Film Club list. I hope it is.
It is. It's one our Film Club recommends.
Which is constantly entertaining. It's so funny. Everyone's really hilarious in it, and it's got great dancing. And I don't really like dancing that much, but actually, this is dancing where it's really... incredibly energetic, and it's stunt dancing. There's all that running up the wall and stuff. Anyway, that is probably about my all-time favourite film, because that's one of those films, if it comes on TV, I switch it on, it'll cheer me up, no matter what mood I'm in.
So there you go, Jamie, 2 to add to your list, Empire of the Sun and Singing in the Rain. What films, we've just done that really, who and what inspires you? From Megan, age 12 at Weatherhood High School.
Who and what inspires me? Well, I suppose, like I mentioned, those 2 documentary filmmakers who have influenced me and inspired me. But I suppose, without meaning to be too cheesy about it, I think actually, as I also said earlier, the people who made this film possible, Life Made It Possible, who sent stuff in, who shared their lives without thought for, making any money out of it or anything like that, those people inspire me, because that inspires me to think there's a lot of really good people in the world. There's a lot of really nice people in the world who are willing to share their lives and share what they know.
Jamie, again, has heard a rumour, Jamie from the Rosen Community School, that you'd be making an adaptation of Meg Rossoff's How I Live Now, which is one of his favourite books. Is that true?
How did you hear that? Yeah, that's true. I'm hoping to, clearly plugged in. I'm trying to do that. Yeah, I've got a script, and I've got most of the money, I think, but not quite sure who we're going to cast in it. We wanted to try and do it at the end of this year, but I'm currently working on another film, which is a documentary about Bob Marley, the musician, I'm sure most of you know of, and that's gone on a bit longer than I thought. So we're not be able to do it till next year, because of course it has to be done. If you've read it, it has to be done in the summer, really, doesn't it? So. Hopefully, if all goes according to plan, I'll shoot it next spring. That's typical of movies, it takes so long to get them right, and if you miss the right bit of weather, you've got to wait a whole year. But yeah, it's a beautiful book, written for teenagers, I think, which starts off and you think, oh, it's another one of those movies about the spoilt rich American girl who goes to stay with her poor British cousins and her life has changed. But it's not that at all, because when this poor little rich girl gets to Britain, she goes to stay with her cousins, she falls in love with one of her cousins, and then the Third World War breaks out. And then it becomes a whole different story. It's very exciting, it's sad, and it's got a love story at the centre between these 2 teenagers.
Well, we'll look forward to that. We've only got time for one more question, I'm afraid. That question I'm going to give to the Beechwood School in Slough, and it is, has being successful given you more freedom or less freedom?
That's a really philosophical question. Success is relative, isn't it? I don't know what exactly is the definition of success. I don't know. I don't feel very successful. I feel like I suppose being successful in film is having any career at all, being able to actually go from one film to another film, and that's quite difficult to get to that position. So yeah, I think having a successful film, the first successful film I had was one called One Day in September. It won the Oscar in 1999 or 2000 for Best Documentary. And that did open doors, because suddenly people say, oh, you won that award. You know, you must be good. I'm going to give you another job. And so suddenly you find I'm not having to sort of scrape for another opportunity around quite so much, and you get a bit more confident because of that.
Great, thanks so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Once again, thanks to all you guys for your brilliant questions. If you haven't seen Life in a Day yet, I think it's out in 2 weeks' time on the 17th, so do go and see it. And we've had a great time making this webcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.